Hey guys, just give me a second to get this going. One second. Okay. Welcome for joining, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Kesia, and I'm so excited to be your teacher for today's creativity class. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm from Barbados. I'm an island girl, born and bred. So if there are any island people in the house, hi. I've been in the creative industry all my life. I went straight into fashion right out of college. And I spent a decade or so in that field. I showcased that collections across the globe, from like LA Fashion Week to doing beautiful gowns on for contestants at things like Britain's and Ireland's Next Top Model. And I just kind of like morphed into home decor after the fashion because I wanted a medium that got my hands more dirty, you know? So I started experimenting with painting more when I got into home decor. I found myself painting on tapestries. I found myself painting on ceramics. It became like almost like an obsession. I would follow some of my favorite artists online and just look at their styles, just to kind of understand what they did. And the more I explored this medium, the more I became obsessed, and it kind of only felt natural to transition into this beautiful world of visual arts. There's something really special about, putting something on a blank canvas, like it comes directly from your soul. And if nothing else, it's like extremely relaxing and therapeutic. With that being said, let's get on the topic of the day, which is expressive painting. I'd love to do a poll to figure out, where you guys are at, like on this journey, like if you guys are, experts, novices. So on a scale of I've never painted in my life to I'm basically Picasso, how would you rate your experience level with painting? So are you a novice? Is it I've dabbled, are you an experienced artist? So you can go ahead and let me know. I'll be waiting to see what you guys say. Okay, so expressive painting. Expressive painting is basically, when you allow the brushstrokes to kind of talk for you in the painting. An expressive brushstroke is one that leaves evidence of itself behind. In most paintings, we tend to like smooth the painting out to get it as realistic as possible. But with expressive painting, we're going to be doing the opposite of that. We're going to be loosening up, we're going to be embracing those brushstrokes and lines and textures that come with that expressive painting styles. There are a few things we can do to kind of get that style. The first one would be to focus on your brush. The larger the brush, the more less focused you are on trying to get those tiny little details in. You tend to be more free in putting down your paint. The other thing is timing. If you give yourself a short amount of time to complete a painting, then you tend to obsess less about those finer details. So we're gonna try and do this, within the hour time. And that should kind of help loosen you up a little bit. The other thing is paying attention to the values, which are essentially the lights and darks of your subject. Values are the most important. You could paint a painting in any color, and as long as those values remain the same, then you're pretty much gonna have a bomb-ass painting. So I think we could pretty much get started now that we have a general idea of what expressive painting is. I forgot to mention to you guys to grab a pencil for this first step, which is where we're going to outline the image. Pull up the image if you have it now. It would be a great time to pull up your image. And if you don't have a pencil on hand, don't worry, I'm going to go over it using a technique with a smaller brush. So you guys are going to be good to go as well. So gather all your supplies. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to get everything ready while I set up here as well. And we are going to go ahead and start. So let's do that now.
Hey, Kesia, do you happen to have a photo of the still life to show everyone really quickly too, just to make sure we're all on the same page?
Okay, sure. Actually, let me just show you guys quickly some of my work before we get started. Let's see. So what we have here is a perfect example of an expressive painting, because you can see like the general outline of the face is there. You get the idea that this is a girl and she's kind of like, just daydreaming a little bit. But there's no real detail, but yet the message comes across. So this is what we're really going to be focusing on today. Alrighty, so let me make sure you guys can see. Pull up my image now. And I'm assuming you guys have yours up as well. And we're going to start off by making an outline. Now, to help you get the perspective right on this canvas, what you can do is divide the canvas into quarters. So we're going to go ahead and do this now. If you have a pencil, I suggest using a pencil to do this part. But I am going to go ahead and do it in paint, just in case there's somebody where I don't have a pencil. So what you're going to do is put your color on your palette and pull it out with water and make it as loose as possible. Because you want this very, very light, because we're going to paint over it when we're done. And you're going to divide, just loosely divide your canvas into a quarters. Just like this. So this way, you can kind of now look at the image and divide that mentally into quarters as well. And that would give you an idea of where you're supposed to be placing these images, these vases, your subject matter, rather. So we can see that this orange one to the left of the image is, let's say, in the bottom left corner, just past the halfway mark of this canvas. So I want you to kind of look at these images and see them as shapes. So right here we have the orange as a circle at the bottom of the vase, and the mouth of the vase will be kind of like a rectangle or cylinder. So we're gonna go in and focus on the shapes of these objects. Sorry. Just come right in and draw a very loose circle. We're not focusing on any details right now at the moment. We're just gonna go in and do it as rough as possible, focusing on your shapes. I'm gonna go ahead right here with your rectangle. Again, very loose. We're gonna come back to that afterwards. Again, same thing for your other objects in the painting. We're gonna go ahead, and this one is almost slightly off to the left as well, off to the left of your canvas. It's gonna come in, it goes just above the halfway mark. We're gonna do that as a rectangle as well. Focusing on these shapes. All the way down. And if you can see, this ends just almost halfway on the vase that we've already painted in, outlined in. So you can put that right there. Another little rectangle for the mouth at the bottom. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You're just feeling the painting out at this point. And our last phase, we're gonna come over here. That's another circle, like edging over the first one. All right, again, another little rectangle right here. I'm gonna give you guys a minute to make sure you have your outline in. Okay, so just to explain the mouth at the bottom, we're gonna think of it as, actually I have a little demonstration here to show you guys exactly how you can get that done. We're gonna think of the circle almost as like it's tilting upwards. So when you see it, actually, like this, it's always like you want to tilt it upwards and it becomes almost pinched, oh sorry, like a pinched circle as you move this shape upwards. So you can see the example here. So that's exactly what this top pinched circle here is, the same kind of pinched circle you want for the top of your vase. You can go ahead and just put that in at the top. Bearing in mind that these shapes can all mirror themselves. If you think of it as a 3D image, you notice that all the shapes kind of have the same swooping motion. You do it in the top as well, and along all of your, the top of your vase. Kind of lost this one a little bit, so I'm just gonna go right back in and tighten that up. You have the top of your vase. Now we're gonna go ahead and really study the contours. Let me see if you guys can see this. The contours of these objects. And we're gonna try and taper those lines to follow that contour of the objects that you see in your painting here. Just follow that contour. Almost like a semicircle. A semicircle at the top of this vase. I don't know if you can see it. So we're just gonna go in and just follow that line. The same with your vase down here. Just follow that contour at the bottom. Okay. And do the same for all of your objects. We're just gonna go in and follow those contour lines, getting that shape as close as possible to your vases. Okay, so now that we have our outline done, we're gonna go ahead and add some color. So as I was saying earlier about the values, the color values of an image, you wanna really focus on where these values, which are the darks and lights of your object, fall in your image. So if we start by looking at the orange little vase at the bottom left, you can see the dark is on the right side of the vase and it kind of follows that contour and wraps all the way around your vase. So we're gonna go in for darks first. You can use, I'm using a burnt sienna with a little bit of black and a touch of burnt umber. So that's burnt sienna, burnt umber, and black to mix my shadow color. I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. And we are going to take our 1-inch brush, which would be the largest brush that you have on hand. And you want to get a healthy amount of paint in the brush. So you want to pull this on the canvas. Try not to dilute the paint too much because you want to keep those nice brush strokes visible. You want the brush strokes to be the star of your painting, essentially. So we're gonna go in on the right side of your vase and start putting in these darker values, following the image and following the contours of your object, just like that. Again, not trying to be perfect. We're more just trying to get the feeling of the painting rather than capture all of the details of the painting. Just gonna get a little bit more. I'm gonna go ahead and do that for our other vases as well. You can see there's some dark coming on the right of this as well. And I know you'd be tempted to think because, you know, working faster helps with expressive painting, that we want to rush through the painting, but actually like being intentional about where you place each brush stroke. Because the brush strokes, again, are what are the main focus of expressive painting. It's very, very important. Notice how the shadow on this taller vase is kind of hidden beneath this one, that kind of pushes it back. So it's hidden beneath this vase to the right of the painting. So you want to make sure that you don't bring this darker line to the edge of this. You want to keep this behind this vase at the front. So we're going to end up right here. And we're going to leave that just as it is. Okay. On to our third vase now. And if we look at this properly, it only has a shadow like right at the top of the vase, right here. Because what's happening is there's the white table at the bottom of this vase is kind of reflecting light. I'm so sorry for the dogs, you guys. My neighbors have dogs. I apologize. I hope you can still hear me though. So we're gonna have the light of the white reflecting onto the bottom of this vase. So we're tending to get that shadow right at the top, right in this area here. And again, don't worry about putting too much detail in right now. We're gonna come back in with a smaller brush. We're gonna add a little bit more detail as we go. So this should be all you need to worry about at this moment. Okay, we're gonna give that brush a rinse. A good dry brush. And we're gonna come in with our orange vase first. Just using the regular orange artsy paint. Same 1-inch brush. And we're gonna fill in our light areas. Just like that. And not thinking too much, just want to get this color in. Make sure the values match. We have just the same amount of light that we have in the image, the same amount of light that we have on the canvas. We need those values to match. And what we're gonna do with our brush is just feather it. You want to use the brush very lightly. Don't put too much pressure on the brush. Just almost like a few hairs and some air, and then like pull this color a little bit through so we can blur the line where the light meets the shadow just a little bit. Hope you guys are doing great and you're following along with me. I'd love to see some of your work at the end of this. If you guys can send some pictures through, that would be lovely. Okay.
What we can do at the end is ask if there's any volunteers who would like to share. You guys can use the raise your hand tool, and I will prompt you to start your video and your audio if you'd like to share.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna pay attention now to the light areas of your vase. If you look closely, you can see where the light source is kind of shining on the center of the vase. You get that little white bit of light right there. And then a little more up to the top of the neck of the vase. We're gonna go ahead and grab our 1/2-inch brush. And we're gonna put some white paint on our palette. Just add a little bit of orange to that white, titanium white. We're just gonna go in and our light sources. And again, if you notice at the bottom of this vase, if you look at the picture, you can see that reflection of the table coming back to the left of the vase. So we're gonna try and see if we can get that in there as well by mixing a very, very light gray. I'm going to go ahead and add some black to your white. And what you're gonna do is dilute that with some water. You want the consistency to be almost runny. So you don't want it to be heavy at all. And then we're gonna go in and try to put that light source. Again, leaving those brush strokes visible. You want those brush strokes to be the star of this painting. Just kind of mimicking the shape. If you pick up some other paint, just wash your brush out and go back in again. The beautiful thing about acrylic is that you can just paint right over it as soon as that area dries. It dries so quickly. So you don't have to worry too much about mistakes. Get a nice light area reflecting off this table along the edge of your vase. So this is what I like to call it, laying down the foundation of the piece. And we just get the basic values and shapes and everything in, and then we're gonna come right back in later.
Hey, Kesia, the audio is being a little odd. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, great.
Is it okay now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, so for this middle vase, it's kind of like a very pale pastel yellow. I chose to go with raw sienna, which I'm gonna mix with some white. And again, we're gonna go in with our 1-inch brush, largest brush you have in hand. I'm gonna mix until we get that light yellow color. A little bit more white. Just gonna fill. This area in. Not worrying too much about your detail. And if you keep your brush wet, try to always keep a little bit of moisture in your brush because that's gonna help to kind of blend and pull paints out as you move around your canvas. Once that paint gets too dry and that brush gets too dry, it kind of creates more of a splotchy type feeling. And we want to see those brush strokes. I don't know if you can see them here, but I want to see those brush strokes in your painting. And with every brush stroke, try to consider like the significance to the painting. So like, what is happening here? Is this an area where the light is hitting the painting? Do I need to put more white on this area? Do I need to mix, define the line a little bit more? Just try to think of exactly what you are doing with each brush stroke. So again, we're gonna try to blend this area out. So we're gonna come in with just a little pressure, nothing too heavy. Just gonna feather this edge out. just like that. Not worrying about it too much. We bring this all the way down to the bottom. And we're gonna move on to our next vase. Okay, so this color is a little weird, isn't it? It's a little weird color. It looks pinky, but it still has like a very earthy feeling to it. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna mix some red. What I have here is crimson red with a little dab of crimson red to your titanium white or whatever white you have at hand. And just to give it that tinge of earthiness, we're gonna add a little bit of mustard, which again is raw sienna, that very mustardy yellow. So a little bit of red into the white and a dab of that burnt sienna into that red and white to give it more of that earthy type pink that we see in this image. So with your big brush again, 1-inch brush, you might be tempted to move to a smaller brush, but just try to get more comfortable with using these big brushes. It's gonna give you that very loose feel that we're always aiming for in expressive painting. So I'm gonna bring this all the way out, almost touching that yellow. Touching that yellow. Bringing your brush strokes. And you see how that looks, even if you can leave, like instead of mixing the paint completely, you can leave a little bit of that red showing and a little bit of that yellow showing, and that in turn adds even more visual interest to your objects. So you don't have to worry about getting the perfect mix, you know, when you're mixing these colors. Following the lines, following the contours and shapes of your object. Look at that. If you feel like your outlines are too dark, you can always just go over them just a little bit. Again, the paint is forgiving. So you can always push and shove the paint around, kind of manipulate it to do what it is you want it to do. We lost some of our shadows on this one. So we're just gonna give it a rinse. And we're gonna go right back in with that burnt umber and that black mixture. Just kind of put that shadow right back in there. All right, so now that we have our base down, we're gonna do the fun part, which is the coming in with a little bit of the detail now. So I want you guys to get your 1/2-inch brush, and we're gonna start right back over to the left with our orange little pot over here. It's gonna get that brush filled with orange, and if you're using primary colors, I should have mentioned this before, but you can mix your orange with red and yellow. And we're gonna start to shape, just really get the shape of the subject. Keeping those brush strokes visible. If you lose any of your detail in the process, feel free to just dip right on back in that white. Give it another little touch here, pop that back out, nice and vibrant. Yeah, we keep pushing on. Okay, so remember when we talked earlier about the circle at the top of your vase and how it's kind of like pinched because we're not seeing it as a circle, we're seeing it at an angle. So it becomes this squash, this pinched circle. What we're gonna do with that circle is imagine how the light coming from this side would hit it. So because this is the opening, the light is gonna reflect on this side of the opening of the bottle. And this side is gonna be a shadow because we have to like come in this way. So you're gonna come in with your shadow color, umber black, and highlight that darker value at the opening of this bottle, which will then give it an illusion of that being the opening at the top. So as you fill in that shadow, we're gonna come on this side and do the opposite. We're gonna put our light source hitting the other end of the opening on the bottom. So it comes with the orange and a little bit of white. Pull on the opposite side. This now becomes the opening of your bottle. Take that a little step even further and kind of highlight exactly where the light hits along the edge of the opening. So we're going to use the smallest brush you have on hand for this one. You're going to take a little bit of white and just come along the edge of that bottle right here. Kind of define the opening of that bottle. All right, so let's move on to our middle vase again. We're gonna wash this brush out. And again, noticing our values, we notice again, it's very light as the light source hits from the left onto the vase. It slowly starts to get darker until we get to the other side of the vase, which is completely in shadows. So we're just gonna go ahead and just add a little bit more detail to this. And as it comes around the top, the mouth of the bottle, like those shapes, you can see those shapes happening again. Whereas the bottle is being pinched, it creates that semicircle here. It also creates that semicircle like on the neck of the bottle as well. So we're always mirroring that same shape as we go up and down, even at the end of the bottle here. So once you go ahead and put that shape in, we're gonna pull those shadows a little bit into that semicircular shape of the bottle neck. And that will give you that contour, that illusion that is swooping inwards. Down, we're gonna like feather that out again. Very light brush strokes, feathering that out. We're gonna bring some white to kind of emphasize our light area on this side. Oops, got some red in there.
I have a question for you, Kesia. I was wondering how you know if you're making an error that you can't really fix with acrylic paint, because I know it dries pretty quickly. How do you know, or how do you kind of mitigate if you've made a critical error?
If you feel like you've made an error with acrylic paint, the best thing you can do is just to give it some drying time, because essentially you can always layer on top of the paint. So if you feel like, for instance, I can still see a little bit of this line coming through here, you just give this a little bit of time to dry, and then you go straight on top of that. Again, it's just kind of going to sit on the top of that line, and kind of as you add color to it, that mistake that you made will kind of fade into the back of the painting. And as it relates to like these outside edges, the same thing. Once we come in with our background, we're going to just layer over all of these little marks and like tighten up. So there's really no mistakes per se. You can always kind of course correct with acrylic, which is what I like so much about the medium. So yeah, continue on with our, again, 1/2 inch brush. We're going to tighten up the mouth of this vase. So just as we did over here, we're going to come in with our darker colors, our burnt umber and our black, and put in our shadow, our darker value, a little bit more black, into the mouth of the bottle, into that very pinched circle shape that I keep mentioning. And then as the light kind of hits, naturally it's going to fade into a lighter color. So we're going to go ahead for lights on the other side of this. Anytime you get any like bits that feel too sharp, you can use the same technique to kind of feather it out, barely touching your canvas, just giving it a little, you know, feathering action at the top here. Feather that out. And always come in with some white and tighten up that shape at the top. Which we're going to do later and we're putting in the background in any way, like I mentioned, we're going to come in and tighten up all these angles so you have a more clean edge with your objects. So you see, you can clearly see you have some light over here, you have some dark over here. You can see the shape of these subjects starting to pop and come to life as you add those values and you add those layers of lights and darks to your objects. I'm gonna go over here to the pink one. Actually, before we go, I missed a light source. If you can see, there's a light source almost at the top of this painting. The light is shining directly. You don't want to miss any of these sources. So we're gonna come in with bright, bright white. I'm gonna mix that with anything, just make it as bright as possible because the yellow is already a very light color. And we're gonna add that pop of light on our walls right here. So a little bit of white up top as well. Mimic that light source. Okay, on to our third and final vase. We're gonna come in with our white again. This being a very light color, we're gonna use the bright white because we want this light to show as much as possible. And on the left side of our vase, which is getting that light source, we're just gonna come pull that paint all the way down, giving that illusion that this light is shining on this side of your vase. Keeping those brush strokes visible. Very loose interpretation of your subject. Again, we have the same thing happening with the reflection of the table. As you can see, the white is kind of like coming up on the outer side of this vase. So we're just going to mimic that as well. Bringing that little light source up here. Mimicking what we did for the other two vases that we opened in. Bringing our dark source with our same 1/2 inch brush from the left of the bottle opening, almost to the center. We're gonna go ahead and wash our brush and bring our light source from the opposite side. So we're gonna have to get some pink, a very, very light pink. And bring that light from the other edge, opening of the bottle. Keeping that semicircular shape and even bringing it down to the bottle neck, the neck of your, that's what you would call it, the neck of your vase. All right, so we're gonna look at where the shadows are kind of falling on these images at the bottom of the vases. You can see there is a shadow at the bottom here being cast from this light source. Goes this way up onto your middle vase. There's a shadow being cast by the pink one that goes all the way back into like the same circular shape of the vase. So we're gonna go ahead and put those shadows in right now. I'm gonna use this again, the burnt umber. Bit of raw umber and some black. What we are the following. And if you notice, when you get right up under the vase, as it touches the table, is where the shadow is the darkest. So you want to start with the darkest color at the bottom of the shadow, and then it kind of it lightens up as it fades towards the other objects. So what you can do is come in with your shadow, Just being careful of where it falls on this table. Again, leaving those brush strokes visible. It almost comes all the way up to your pink vase. And then it kind of leans up towards the top of your yellow vase, making that a little fluid shape almost. Then we're gonna go with some black, just jet black, and darken up the edge. You guys can see, darken up the bottom of that shadow where it touches the table. You want to have it the darkest where it touches the table and kind of fades out. Anytime you feel like your paints are getting too, I guess, colors are getting too much, it could be because you have too much paint in your brush. And in this case, what I would suggest is just wash it all out, dry it out, and just, go at it again. Okay. And then for the shadow of the middle vase, there's a darker area right along almost the bottom right of this vase that defines where this vase touches the table. I'm gonna go ahead with some black and just define that area as well. Following, okay. Again, I made a little mistake here, so what we're gonna do is let that dry for a little bit, move on to this one. Same as I mentioned before, just give it maybe like, not even 5 minutes, in like 2 to 3 minutes, that paint is gonna start drying, and you could just go right on over there and swoop in and clean up that mistake that we've made. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'll come back to it later and explain again. Give that some drying time, and we're gonna move on to our paint base and kind of like tighten up the shape here as well and add our shadows. So let's go in with the burnt umber. We're gonna make the paint not as thick, just loosen it up a little bit with the water so that when you drag it, it just slides across the canvas for this shadow. Loose enough to just slide and glide. That comes out in a circular type motion, mimicking, I guess, a distorted shape of the vase. Very loose. You're not stressing out at all here. Then again, the darker values as it touches the table. And fades out to that lighter shadow. Noticing that this needs to come a little bit more like this, the shape of this vase. I'm just gonna pull that shape outward just a little bit. And do the same on the other side. Grabbing that pink that I made a little bit earlier, the earthy pink. Pulling that a little bit more this way. Okay, oh, that's a little bit closer. All right. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead now and add in our leaf, our plant foliage at the top of our painting. And we can do this very loosely. It's almost like you want it to feel like, again, the expression of what you see and not necessarily the exact image that you see. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some emerald green on my palette. And it's kind of a dusty sage type green. So I'm gonna add some gray. I'm gonna add that to some gray to give that kind of a more dull tone than the bright. I'll probably even add a little bit of yellow to warm it up just a little bit. Now that we have that, I'm just gonna loosely bring this from the top of my vase and just, feel the brush strokes, feather that out the way you imagine a leaf would. Again, not worrying about being too precise at all. Just give it the illusion of this foliage reaching up from the top of our vase, like so. And just to create some more visual interest in this leaf, we're gonna go ahead and just imagine that the light is coming from this direction. There's gonna be some dark, as you can see in the painting here, underneath these leaves, just to add some visual interest there as well. I'm gonna get some white because we have to have our dark and light values. If there's dark, it must be a light source. So we're gonna get some white, put a little bit of that green, and go ahead and add some detailing on the top if you're still working with a 1/2 inch brush. Add a little bit of green to this white. It's kind of like a little bit on the tops, what you would imagine would be the tops of those leaves coming from the left side of your canvas. Okay, so now that we have a very loose and expressionist version of this painting, we can go in and add a background to this. Once we add our background, I want to add the shadow that you see falling on the leaf after I add my background, just because we want to layer that shadow on top. We don't want to get it lost when we try to go in and add a nice background of this painting. So again, we're going to come with our 1-inch brush, our big brush, and let's see, what color should we do this background in? I think I'm gonna go ahead and try let's say like a grayish type green. So I get some white. My green, a little bit of black. Try not to mix it too much because, as I said earlier, when you have those pops of color showing through like that undermixed paint, it adds so much more visual interest, and it really does add that like expressively like feeling to your painting. So we're just gonna come in, not worry too much about blending that paint. Pull this paint out, some large brush strokes. You can go up and down, bring some across, just add that expressive feeling to your painting. You want it to get a little bit lighter as I go to the center, so I'm gonna go into some white. I always find it so relaxing. I hope you guys are feeling nice and relaxed. It's such a serene thing to sit and create something like this on canvas. Running out of paint. I usually like to paint with some music on. Sit and relax. Okay, so as you get closer to this is an opportunity now for you guys to clean up. Actually, you may want to do that with a smaller brush. So you can just come in and clean up any of these edges. If you feel like you painted a little bit too far to the left, Just tighten up in this moment. See how this paint just kind of goes over all of these marks that we had in the beginning that you're probably so worried about, and you can just come and cover them all up. Like they were never there. Tighten all of these edges. More green. And a little bit more green to this. There it is. There's so many people that struggle with painting loose. Like it's always an issue to loosen. We always have this natural instinct to want to like get the image as close as possible to what you see. But then it takes away from the beauty of this loose, like just, letting these brushes just kind of speak for themselves, Tightening up some of these edges. Running that brush in a little bit more controlled manner along the edges to keep them clean. To really make that image pop out of the background. Oops. And over my shadow a little bit in this corner. That's it, we're coming almost finished, we're getting there. And this was done in less than an hour, so it really shows you if you really focus on what you see in those dark areas and those light areas, and you just get those in and not worry so much about, is it perfect, the perfection of it all. You can still have a beautifully expressive painting at the end of it. Okay, I'm going to use my smaller brush just to get into the tighter areas here. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. Clear up any of these edges. You guys with me? I don't want this edge to be a little bit more defined. So what we can do, get a little bit of the white without mixing it anything. And just come in and kind of like push that out. So it really stands out on that side of the light source. And that's another thing with expressive painting. You can choose to push things to the boundary. So even though this light might not be as bright as what would have been your image, you can make that decision as the artist to just pop that even more, to exaggerate in sorts your objects. Do the same thing to this one, give it extra little white light source here. Just really thinking about where you place your brush strokes, looking at your image, and if it feels like it needs a little bit of that, you're just going and intentionally adding those brush strokes where you feel your painting needs them. All right, and just paint them. As we're closing in on finishing this painting right now, I would love, like I said, to see if you guys could send me some images of what you have, how you've been getting on.
Yeah, if there's anyone who would like to volunteer to show their painting, just go ahead and drop your name in the chat or raise your hand through Zoom. It's that little emoji of a hand. And we will get your camera on and show off your work.
Okay, we're coming up to a close now. The last thing we have to do is add in the shadow of the leaf. So we can get that same 2-inch brush. We're gonna go back in for burnt umber and a little bit flat. And we're actually gonna like add a little some water to lighten this up a little bit, because as I mentioned before, shadows almost have that kind of like a translucent kind of feeling to it. So if you lighten up your paint, you also have that, see, very light translucent kind of vibe to these strokes. Just mimicking what you see with the leaf. I'm gonna get a smaller brush. This kind of curves and comes all the way in. And slants a little bit downward. Yeah. Like a little shadow cast off of your leaf now. So that brings us to the end. Looking forward to see what you guys have, if you have anything. Don't forget to sign your work, because you're now officially an expressive painter. I'm gonna go ahead and get that little sign down here. And that's it. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions at this time, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. If you enjoyed the class, let me know. We can have a little chat.
All right, we have someone who would like to show us their work. Her name is Ava. So Ava, I'm gonna go ahead and promote you to panelist.
Okay.
Just gonna hop back in. Ask to start video and ask to unmute. There we go.
Hi. This is my painting.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
Thank you. I had some very wonderful, vibrant colors.
Yes.
I really just
Oh
want
my God, that looks so good. I'm so proud.
Thank you. I can't wait to finish it.
Oh my God, you did so well. And you better have to put the shadows in the back and everything. Look at you.
I gotta say, I did this my freshman year in art school. It's been a long time since then, but this has just been a really great way to spend some time, and I really enjoyed class.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm so glad. You did a great job. Looks amazing.
We had great instructions, so.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Is there anyone else? Are we closing up for today?
We have another volunteer. I'm going to go ahead and put Eva, and then, okay, Christine is coming up next. And Christine, you can go ahead and unmute and start your video.
Oh shoot, I have a background. I didn't even know it. I don't know if this is
Hi,
gonna show. How do I turn that off? I didn't mean to do
That's
that.
okay. That's okay.
No, okay, here we go. So I have been trying to learn more about using an app on my iPad. So I've done it a little differently, but
Oh, nice. Oh, that's lovely as well. You really get
I'm not as
I love how you went ahead and you did your own thing with the feathering. It almost looks like a rosemary kind of thing coming out the top. That's so beautiful.
yeah. Well, I'm glad you like that because I wasn't really sure about the
No, I
green.
love it. I love it. That's the thing, it's expressive painting, you know, you get to like put your own twist on things. So that's very beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. And if anyone has any further questions, we are going into the Q&A section, or if of course you want to volunteer and show off your work, we'd be happy to spotlight you. I guess an initial question I have for you, Kesia, is how did you like learn your skills initially? Because I know you mentioned in the beginning of your career, you started in fashion.
Right.
But how did you develop
So in that fashion course, we had to do art as well. Like it was almost like a subset of the fashion. So I think that's where I developed more of my skills during painting. I didn't formally learn art as a subject. It kind of happened as I went ahead and started studying my favorite artists and going on YouTube and looking at different techniques and stuff like that. So yeah, it kind of just grew, you know.
Do you have a favorite subject or style of painting?
I love to do paintings around the female body and just the female as a subject matter. I think we are so strong and we go through so much and we're so inspirational. So I tend to be drawn more towards the feminine, you know, aspect of art.
That's amazing. In terms of questions, we also have one from Sophia. She asked, have you experimented with expressive painting with other mediums like watercolor, oil, fresco, and just found that acrylic was the best medium for it?
Yeah, I experimented with a few. I did some watercolor, I did some gouache, even I tried around with some charcoal and stuff like that. But I really love I don't know, there's something about acrylic and how it dries and then you have to go over it and you end up doing all these layers that gives you, it's not as smooth as the oil would have it or the watercolor would have it. It's easier to use as well. It's more forgiving. That's why I love the acrylic so much.
Amazing, thank you. We have another question, which is, what tools would you recommend for a very beginner painter who doesn't want to invest too much money in the tools?
You can get some brushes. You can get nylon brushes, which are usually the cheaper option. I would say get a set of maybe 5. You can get a range of 5 on Amazon for a very cheap price. And you can always start out with, I still use them actually. I can show you an example. These little starter paints, as I call them, you can get them for like $1 something each. So you can kind of practice and get the feeling first. And then you can move on to more expensive paint brands like Arteza and Golden and stuff like that. So it's really not that expensive to start practicing. So yeah, I'd say go for the $1 paints and a pack of 5 brushes, buy your first canvas and just, go for it.
And the question from another audience member is, who are some of your favorite artists?
Right now, there's a guy called Kari Rahim. That's, I think, KHARI.RAHEEM, Kari Rahim. He's doing some beautiful, beautiful expressive work as well. And then if I'm speaking of older artists, kind of inspired by Basquiat, but who isn't? We all love a good Basquiat piece.
Amazing. Another question we have for you is, how do you find your inspiration?
I think I'd be scrolling on Instagram and like I said, there's these stories of these phenomenal women that kind of like inspire me to do a piece just based on their vibe and their energy and the things that they're doing and just kind of translate that into my art. And there are other times where I would really just get a feeling like I would want to create something by the mood I'm in a certain space, and then I would pull from what is around me, like whether I'm in a desert in California or I'm in Mexico, I just kind of like pull from the vibe of that environment. So yeah, that's basically where I get my inspiration from.
Amazing. And the last question we had for you was, what advice do you have for people who are just starting out and want to be full-time artists or creatives?
I would say like invest your time in your art and do your research on ways that you can market your art and make it visible. You can do that through ads. You can do that through this amazing platform, Creatively, which kind of like puts all of us in one space. So you can connect with other artists, whether you want to collab or you want to, be seen by others who are looking to hire artists. So, just kind of find this platform like Creatively and, doing your own research on how to market your exact product, whatever that is that you're pushing.
Amazing. Thank you so much for everything. The class was awesome. And if you guys would like to share your pieces with us, feel free to tag Kesia and us. I dropped them into the chat in terms of our Instagram handle.
Yes.
Put
Thank
it
you so much for joining me, guys. I had a great time. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yes. Thank you, guys. We'll go ahead and put up Kesia's Instagram handle one more time. And again, we're at Hello Creatively.
Okay. Bye.